guys, Dr. Christy Ennis. If you've got pain on the outside of that thigh or right on the outside of that knee, you can foam roll and try to stretch that thing till the cows come home, and you're not going to make any difference until you get to the root cause, which actually starts with some muscles right up in the hip. The first muscle, our tensor fascia lata, say that 10 times fast, is a little teeny tiny muscle up in the hip. And I'm actually going to roll my shorts down a touch so I can show you guys exactly where this darn thing is. So if you find the top of your hip crest, and then you're going to travel down to where there's a little bump that sticks out kind of in the front. If you drop your fingers down, that muscle right there, and boy is mine tight, is the TFL or tensor fascia lata. I also call it the fifth pocket muscle. Now, this muscle attaches directly into that IT band, as my lovely stripes are showing, and goes all the way down into the knee. The IT band itself can withstand really up to 1,000 pounds of force. So if you're trying to foam roll this thing, that's why it doesn't work very well. It just irritates the heck out of it and doesn't do anything. So it's this darn little muscle that we need to address. And the very first thing we want to do with it is actually get it to release a little bit. The first way to release this muscle is standing, which is the least painful way, which is why I'm going to show that first. And you're going to either use something like the edge of the derma edge, which I can link for you. This is one that I created and patented. Or your knuckle, you can use also if it's comfortable for you to do. So taking your knuckle or the edge of that derma edge, you're going to dig it right into that little muscle. Ooh, yep. And then you're going to take that leg and you're going to actually flex that hip up. So we're bringing that knee up and back down. And when you bring it up, it probably is like, blech, and then you bring it back down and it's not as awful. You're going to do this until it feels a little bit better and you don't feel like you have to go blech anymore. If it's too difficult to do this standing, you can definitely also do this when sitting in a chair. The other way to do this with a tennis ball is on the ground, lying directly on it. So just know that you have to put a fair amount of pressure on it, which is why I show this one second. So again, finding that little muscle, you usually have to roll forward just a little bit, right? Ooh, yep, there it is. And then you're gonna take this bottom leg just like we were doing before. You still wanna add that flexion in. You can make whatever facial expression you want, but just make sure that you breathe as you do this. Same concept though, you wanna do this until it feels a little bit better. The next muscles that need to be worked on and loosened up are typically the outside of those quad muscles because they attach right into those fibers of the IT band and again tend to be tight as opposed to weak. So I'm going to show you two different ways. I'm going to take the derma edge first and just, boy, is that bumpy. Try to get a little bit of blood flow going through this area. Notice I'm not directly on that IT band, right? I'm on those muscles that are attaching there. This, like I said, is just to get that blood flow going, and then we're going to attack those really tight spots. So again, using your knuckle or using that edge of the derma edge, you're going to, oh, this is so good because I really hurt. You're going to take in those sore spots and you're just going to add either a little leg movement like this, a little leg jiggle, or you can even add, now my leg is jiggling anyways, but you can add a little jiggle with that derma edge. Same idea in that you want it to do it until it goes, oh, wait, that spot's not so bad. For me, it wasn't. I only have a couple of them today, so I'm just going to show you which ones are my spots. And then you go through all of those until it feels, again, a little bit better. And then the next one I'm going to show you is with a tennis ball. The second one, much like that first TFL one, is with a tennis ball and it is more painful. So those yucky spots that you found, you're going to take that tennis ball on the ground, or you can even try this on the bed, which is a little softer, a little more give, so it'll be a little less uncomfortable. Watch me grimace through this one. So again, kind of on the outside of that quad muscle. So I'm just rolling back just a touch here. And then adding that knee bend and straighten. And notice I am actually propping myself up a fair amount here. So try not to strain any other body part as you do this. But again, same concept in that you're moving this leg or flossing that muscle until it feels a little bit less uncomfortable. The next muscles we really need to address after things are a little looser are the ones that need to get stronger. And those tend to be the glute medius and minimus. And if you look at the top of your hip again and come down, a little bit of an angle this time, these are the muscles that aren't working as hard. And this poor little muscle, that TFL, has to overcome the weakness here. So we're going to work on strengthening these up, and the specific exercises we're going to work on are going to make sure that we don't irritate this at the same time we're strengthening this. So research has shown that the clamshell exercise is a great way to strengthen this and to avoid irritating that TFL, which is why we're going right into that one. So you're going to lie on your side, whether it's on the bed or on the floor, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Torso's lifted a little bit away from the floor. you're gonna look down at your legs. And when I kind of wiggle my toes around, hey, I can see my feet and my toes, but I really can't see my leg. If you can, it means your legs are too far forward, and you're actually gonna start to use more of your hip flexors than you really want to. So once you have that position set, without moving the hips, you're gonna bend the knees. Now the feet are gonna stay glued together and just this top knee is going to lift. And you wanna be careful that you're only lifting this knee as high as you can without rolling backwards, which means that you may not be lifting very high, and that is 100% okay. Now, the one key with this one is that sometimes along with this IT band stuff, you get some glute strain in there as well. So sometimes this one can be irritating right off the bat, not always. If it is, we're gonna actually do this with a straightened leg and do what's just called a side leg raise or hip abduction raise. So I'm straightening out that top leg. I'm actually gonna bring it back a little bit so that I'm aiming more towards my heel. And to help so that we don't irritate that muscle again, I'm gonna turn my toes down just a touch, and then we're lifting here. Again, kind of activating right in here. And again, though, this is only if that first one was irritating a little bit. So for either of these exercises, whichever one you go with that feels the best, you do want to go until it feels a little bit fatigued. Not painful, but fatigued. And usually that's between 15 and 20 reps, but always listen to your body. After we have released some muscle, worked on strengthening things in a comfortable way, now we're gonna try to stretch that little booger of a muscle out. So this is a kneeling one. We can't always do this standing if it's uncomfortable to kneel, but to make it a little more comfortable, I'm gonna put my knee right on a pillow. This is the leg that we're gonna be stretching. Now, instead of doing that IT band stretch, right, which we already talked about doesn't work, instead we're gonna stretch that muscle out. So to really target that muscle, instead of just bringing this leg in front, you're gonna make sure it's directly in front, if not even a little bit over. I'm gonna kind of shift my hips towards my little stool that I'm holding onto, while trying to, of course, keep my hips facing forward, right? I don't wanna rotate everything. It's just that little lean. Now you may already feel a stretch, and I actually do. If you don't, this is when you can start to try to bring those hips forward. So we are stretching the hip flexors, but again, really targeting into that little darn TFL there, holding for about 3 to 5 breaths if you can. Our last exercise is kind of a little bonus. We're addressing the hip and actually the foot this time too. If you have a foot where the arch collapses or does what we call overpronate, which is where that foot goes in a little bit too much, that's going to cause some strain and pull right on that IT band as well. We're going to do a single leg deadlift so that we're now actually working on the hip and working on that stability of the foot. So please feel free to hang on to something nice and sturdy if you need to. I'm gonna stand right on this leg, and as I do that, I'm actually gonna concentrate on lifting that arch up a little bit so that I'm working those muscles there too. From that lifted position, tiny little bend in that knee, and then I'm gonna take my hips and I'm gonna shift them straight back without letting that foot collapse. So notice I'm a little wobbly. I need to hang on a little to keep that foot up. You can do this with a weight also if it gets too easy, but same idea is that other strengthening one in that you want to work until it feels a little bit fatigued back here, usually about 10 to 15 repetitions. If you are having some foot issues like we just talked about at the end there, it may be that you need to put an orthotic or have a shoe that actually helps support that arch. I definitely recommend if you do that though that you check with someone in person because you don't want to change and shift the entire biomechanics. But there you have your exercises to start with and then a little additional if you need to add something to your shoe as well.